Hello everybody, it's Joe and welcome back to Diablo 2 Resurrected. Today we'll have a look at Amazon wielding a bow and using mainly the freezing arrow skill. I find this build fun and straightforward, but it can be a little bit tricky to build correctly, especially on a tight budget, but that makes it quite rewarding when you make it right. After patch 2.4 goes live, Elemental Bow Amazon should be easier to build because the cold and fire arrow skills should have increased damage for less mana. Because let me tell you, this is one mana starved build. You have naturally low mana, budget gear does not really help with that, and each arrow costs over 20 mana and you shoot them pretty fast. So let's have a look at the skills. Of course, the main star of the show is the freezing arrow, which is a skill which does cold damage, it has AoE and it freezes your targets for 2 seconds. It could be longer depending on your other skill investment. So naturally you are putting 20 points into freezing arrow and you are putting 20 points to cold arrow, which increases your freezing arrow damage. In the middle is ice arrow, and putting points into ice arrow does not increase your damage, but it increases the freeze duration. It is perfectly okay for you to skip the ice arrow and only put 1 point as prerequisite into it, because the freeze duration for 2 seconds can be actually quite enough. So with investment of 31 points, you are basically done with the core of the build, and now you can decide what you are going to do about cold immune monsters. My favorite solution to cold immune monsters is putting 20 points into fire arrow and 20 points into exploding arrow. Exploding arrow also does AoE, but the damage is slightly lower than on the freezing arrow. Another option to deal with cold immunes is putting actually points into multiple shot, guided arrow or strafe. Another option to deal with cold immunes would be putting points into lightning fury, but that's probably topic for a separate video. So that leaves us with passive and magic skills. Here you have also few options. I decided to only put 1 point into decoy and skip
Valkyrie.
however is that pronounced, and I'm also skipping dodge, avoid and evade. These skills have a bug which sort of locks you into animation of dodging or avoiding, and you can be stuck without being able to move or attack, which can be deadly. But this should be solved in patch 2.4, and after that it would be more advisable to use these skills. Some people swear by Valkyrie or Valkyrie, and especially at level 17 with plus skills it's really tanky, so you can decide to go this way. But I find decoy to be good enough in those cases where you need to get some heat off yourself, and decoy has really good aggro, that means the monsters swarm her real fast. And the most important part of passive and magic skills is the pierce skill, because it lets your projectile attacks hit through enemies and hit the enemies behind them. That means your freezing arrow or exploding arrow can trigger multiple times if you are shooting through a group of monsters. Your goal should be getting somewhere around 100% of pierce, but it's not advisable doing this through the skill alone. So if you have some leftover points, you have few places to put them. One of them is penetrate, which will help your attack rating, or you can put the remaining points into ice arrow or probably guided arrow or something like that to help you either with the freeze duration or having some more physical damage up your sleeve. So that concludes the skills, and I will start with the bows. There are 2 cheap rune words I would recommend to you, and that is Harmony and Melody. Melody gives you more to plus bow and crossbow skills, and because I have plus 2 on the base, it's total plus 5 with the Melody, which adds 3. You have increased attack speed and some other useful modifiers. Another interesting rune word is Harmony, which gives you none of the bow and crossbow skills, and again those plus 2 are from the base. But it gives you another modifiers such as fire, lightning and cold damage. You can use Valkyrie even without putting points into her, and most importantly the Vigor aura, which will help you move around fast, because Enigma does not exist in this budget bracket. Also the enhanced damage can be helpful because it will increase your physical portion of the damage and you will hit with the arrows quite often. The decision between Harmony and Melody is quite difficult, I would say, because even though Harmony gives you none of the plus bow and crossbow skills, actually the cold damage adds to your freezing arrow, it seems, at least based on the character screen, because when I switch between the two, you can see the difference is not much, But if you are checking the tooltip on the skill with Harmony, I am like in 30s, 1300 range. With Melody, I am almost at 1600. But both are great options. Melody can shoot slightly faster with the increased attack speed, that's another thing to consider. Other bows or crossbows I would consider are some rare bows you can get with plus skills. Another cool option is Burizado. It has a huge physical damage which increases based on your level. It has hefty chunk of cold damage built into it. It freezes target, it has piercing attack, so you don't actually have to invest any points into pierce and you can like free your Razor Tail slot. So if you like get Buriza, you can skip on a Razor Tail for the time being. But even though it has like plus 80 increased attack speed, crossbows are inherently slow, and compared to Melody, you would need another 50 increased attack speed somewhere on your gear to match the speed of Melody. But if you can get your hands on this one, you have no reason to skip it. Another nice option would be Weisendraw, because it has minus to enemy cold resistance and it will really help with your freezing arrow damage. And it should be like dirt cheap. I don't even see people like trading it, so if somebody has it, they will probably let it go almost for free, I would say. Regarding the armor, I now prefer using Lionheart because it gives you a nice boost to attributes, and that is really helpful if you don't have the Torch or Annihilos, so you don't have those basic attribute boost we are used to, and the plus resistances are really nice on it, and the enhanced damage does not hurt, or it does hurt, but not you. The runes you need are Hell, Lamb and Fall, so it's sort of cheap, but if you are just starting out, you might need some time to get those, so maybe the even cheaper option would be Shale, Tal, M, Peace, which gives you plus 2 Amazon skills, but you are losing on the resistances. Another maybe slightly more expensive option is Treachery, which gives you nice 35% boost to attack speed, which is really helpful. And you have chance to trigger Fate and Venom, and you can actually trigger Fate quite easily. Let me show you real quick. So you need to get yourself to a River of Flame waypoint, and there are two nice fires right here. And I will stand in the fire for a moment, and I will watch my health because it is possible to die here if you are not careful. Any minute now. Oh, here we go, finally. So you can see my resistances have increased to nice levels because of the Fate, and Fate at level 15 gives you something around 60 or 65 all resistances, and you should have something like 15% damage reduction on top of that. And after you trigger Fate, you are free to put on something else, which gives you other bonuses, but having the Venom constantly on and the increased attack speed are really helpful by itself. So Treachery is definitely very nice armor to have, and you can like have it on your Mercenary who would really benefit from it, and just switch it on yourself, go to River of the Flame, trigger the Fate and give it back to your Mercenary. And another piece of armor I would recommend is Smoke, which is cheap with Neff and Lumberums, and it gives you nice flat plus 50 to all resistances. Their other bonuses are not that interesting, but it's pretty solid armor all around and definitely one of the best budget options you can get. In the belt slot I would recommend a Razor Tail, and we are going back to the chance of piercing, and the Razor Tail gives you 33%, and together with the 60 plus pierce you get from the few points into pierce, you are getting closer to the 100% chance of piercing your enemies, and that is really helpful. The belt is not exactly mandatory. You can live with other belts, some rare belts. Nosferatu's Coil would be nice, String of Ears would be useful. Night Smoke is actually a pretty nice super budget option because it helps you with the resistances and some mana, and damage taken goes to mana, which actually means that when you are dealt damage, some of the damage is restored as mana to you. It doesn't work like an energy shield. And something like Thunder Gods is probably overkill, and you would like better spend your runes and energy getting some items on something else. But even something like Gold Wrap can be really helpful because it has increased attack speed, and the chance of getting magic items is especially helpful if you are trying to farm with your Amazon. I have also Mevina's belt here, and even though it's not the greatest belt in the world, it can be still sort of helpful. For the gloves, I would recommend Length of Hands, because it gives you increased attack speed and much needed fire resistance. But there are also +3 20 gloves. These are actually javelin and spear, so those are not helpful for me, but you can get those with bow and crossbow skills, and you can actually buy them from vendor. I would recommend like trying to shop at Anya, going through the red portal and back. Unfortunately, there is some time delay in Diablo 2 Resurrected compared to the original, because you could just go back and forth, and when you do that, the inventory of the vendor changes, but now you have to wait a little bit before you go back. But I think it's still the fastest way to shop for those. But when you are starting out, anything goes, basically. You can also try to cover some resistances with the gloves, but the Length of Hands shouldn't be very expensive to get, and they do quite a lot for you. For the boots, I'm just gambling again, and these are actually pretty nice because I have Run Walk and Cold Lightning and a little bit of poison resistance, but something like Natalia's would help. These are, I think, actually perfect because 25 Cold and Lightning resistance is the maximum, but if you find some crappy ones, they should be pretty cheap, and they will really help you to move around faster. So again, for boots, anything goes, as long as it has some nice modifiers, but I would really recommend getting something with faster Run Walk, because without teleport, anything that helps you move around faster really helps. For the amulet, again, I'm dealing with my gambling addiction, and I have gambled for this nice Amazon and some resistances. You can go much better than that. At this price bracket, I believe the gambled amulets would be the best for you. And something even like Eye of Atlich, Metal Grade High Lords, these are probably out of your reach if you are building really budget. Cat's Eye would also help with the increased attack speed and faster Run Walk and boost to dexterity. That would be a really nice amulet. And some other amulets like this one with resistances. So depends on your patience and luck. You can get something nice from gambling or playing the game. But again, try to cover probably resistances here, because that's the place where you are suffering without the torch and other nice charms. For the helmet, I'm again using something gambled, and it is +1 to Amazon skills and 30 faster Run Walk, some fire resistance. It's pretty trashy, but it works. Another solution for you might be something like Lore, because it gives you +1 to all skills and a nice light resistance boost, and with Earth and Soul runes you cannot go wrong. Of course, the nice upgrade for you would be Shaco, because it would help you with your mana issues, because this is very mana hungry build. +2 to all skills and chance to find magic items is especially helpful if you are farming, but probably best in slot for most of those cold maidens out there is Nightwing Veil, because it gives you boost to cold damage and all skills. Regarding the rings, the first one I have here also covers some resistances and some lifesteal. The ideal solution would be to have something with mana and lifesteal together with nice resistances, but get whatever you can. And probably the most expensive thing on this build is the Ravenfrost, and I was like thinking whether I should include this in the budget build, but if you look for some crappy one, it should be pretty cheap to get. The cannot be frozen modifier is really important for you, because once you are frozen you are basically dead, and the other modifiers also help you quite a lot. I would say especially the 42 mana, because you will have some mana issues. And with that, let me move into attributes, because I think we have covered all of the equipment. Well, you need to have some arrows on you and probably some in your inventory, because you will go through them quite fast. So let's have a look at the attributes. Strength and dexterity are pretty standard stuff for you. You will put enough points to be able to wear your equipment, and the most demanding piece of the equipment is probably the bow, especially if you are using some nice base like this Grand Matron bow. Vitality, I would usually say put the rest of the points of the vitality, but there's a catch with this build. We are actually putting points into energy, and this is no joke, you will probably need some points in energy. So I have put another 60 points into energy and then rest to vitality. Because without those points I would be around 250 mana, which is just enough for shooting like 10 arrows. And without the gear, like I have 40 from Ravenfrost, you get like 20 from Lionheart, I have like 30 mana from the amulet, and maybe somewhere else there's something. Yeah, of course, I have this charm which gives me 59 more to mana. So without all of the equipment and the points here, I would be somewhere around 100 or something mana, and that would be just like 5 arrows I can shoot probably in like 2 or 3 seconds, which would like leave me mana starved all the time. Even though, and this is nice segue to the Mercenary section of the video, let me open that guy up. I have insight on my Mercenary, and I would say this is priority for you. I have a Ethereal Cryptic X, but that is definitely not mandatory and might take some time to find or shop for. So just get any 4 open socket stick you can get and put those Rel, Tear, Tell and Soul runes in there as fast as you can, because the meditation aura will be really important for you. And even with that you need to boost your mana to some reasonable levels. I would like go at least over 300, but I find to be over 350 to be just okay, so I don't have to like drink potions non-stop. Of course you can supplement yourself with potions, but if you are not able to reach some reasonable level of mana, you would need probably like 3 rows of mana potions just to be able to like play through the game. So insight is number 1 priority on your Mercenary, and it might be even like more important than other equipment on you, because you sort of can play naked with this Amazon, because it's not extremely gear dependent, but you would of course lack resistances and some other things here and there. But the insight really helps your quality of life. For the armor, I'm just wearing some random rare I have found during the playthrough, but something like Treachery of course is amazing armor for your Mercenary, and you can use it to buff yourself as I was showing you at the River of the Flame. And while you are gambling for some nice circlets for your Amazon, keep an open eye for circlets with life stolen per hit, because I see these quite often. It's quite easy and fast way to get some life steal on your Mercenary before you get your hands on something like Endarials. You can decide between Might and a Holy Freeze aura, and I have decided to go the Might route because it helps your Mercenary damage quite a lot, and especially if you are using some bow which has some nicer physical damage, it will really help even you. So the Holy Freeze is not really necessary, because your freezing arrow is amazing crowd control, so basically the group of monsters will just stand in place and do nothing, so you don't really need a Holy Freeze. So with all that said, let's do some farming, and the first spot I would recommend is the pit, and you would just need to teleport yourself to the auto cloister, make your way out and follow the path. You will see the path will fork at some point, and one of those branches leads to the previous zone and one of those leads to the pit. And in the pit you will encounter a combination of cold and fire immune monsters, so you have to like alternate between your attacks, but it adds some, not really a challenge, but some variance into your playthrough. And even when you encounter like a huge pack of cold immune monsters, just put down your decoy and use the exploding arrow, you will deal with them fast enough. The pit is level 85 zone and it's quite easy to farm, so I really recommend it as your farming spot, because it's also easy to find and you just run down and can find it quite quickly. Compared to the next zone I'm going to recommend, and that is Ancient Tunnels. Another zone I would recommend are the Ancient Tunnels, because it's another level 85 zone, that means anything can drop here. And the nice thing about this zone is there are no cold immune monsters, that means you can just spam your freezing arrow, freeze all the enemies, and enjoy the nice drops you can get here. The only issue with the ancient tunnels is that you might take some time to find them in the lost city because they can basically spawn anywhere near the buildings, so that might waste some of your time depending whether you are playing online or single player. So the advantage of the pit is that it's easier to find, but you will have to alternate between freezing arrow and exploding arrow. In the ancient tunnels, the issue is you will spend some time looking for them before you get there. Farming the end bosses is like possible, but I'm not really sure whether that is recommended in this budget setup, because you will probably have quite hard time to keep your mercenary alive, even if it is geared quite nicely, because it will take you some time to deal with the enemies. The freezing arrow is better suited for dealing with group of enemies. It can actually freeze, and you cannot freeze the bosses, so they will still go after you, still do quite a lot of damage, and your single target damage is not the greatest thing in the world. But if you can like deal with farming in a Nightmare, dealing with Nightmare Andariel and Nightmare Mephisto was pretty fast with this setup, so you can try to do that. Maybe you can find some nice equipment for you to progress through the hell. Another basic place for farming is Frigid Highlands, but the issue here is that most of the monsters here are actually cold immune, so it will take you some time to deal with them and you will have to use the exploding arrow. And whatever farming run I do, I would finish it with Pindleskin. Because even though all these corpses are cold immune, the monsters around Pindleskin are usually not, so you can deal with them with freezing arrow quite easily. And when all of those corpses get up, you can just run through and exit the game. So that's that. There might be other places you can farm. I'm thinking about like Mausoleum near the Blood Raven in the Act 1, because I believe only lightning immune monsters are there, so that's definitely easy place to farm for you. But the Ancient Tunnels and Pit are probably better locations due to the monster density. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that there is quite a lot of free real estate in your inventory, and just try to cover anything you need. I have those nice lightning resistance charms which help quite a lot, and if you get some charms which give you life and mana, and especially mana I would say, these are really helpful to you too. And with all that said, I believe that's all for today. Yeah, I believe I have covered everything I wanted. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know down below, and I will see you in the next video. I will continue the budget series because I have prepared some budget characters for you, so consider subscribing to the channel so we can stay in touch. So, see you in the next one. Bye!